Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another video. Welcome back to Monster Hunter World Iceborne. And today I'm going to be giving you guys a crash course on Gunlance. Now this is not something that I had originally planned on doing, but apparently because of this Japanese player who got like a sub 4-minute kill on Velkhana by completely beast moding her with a Gunlance, there's now a lot of people really interested in the Gunlance. Even Socks himself is saying that he wants to main the Gunlance in Iceborne. And as such, I figured I'm not gonna do like an in-depth mega hyper guide, but I will do a quick crash course on Gunlance mechanics for those of you that want to start out using this weapon. Now, don't expect to just go out in there and just straight up beast mode through every monster the same way that this player did on Velkhana, because quite simply, that also requires a lot of experience with the weapon. But having the basics usually helps with that, so let's get started. Okay, so before we begin, it is important to mention that at this point, the final version of Iceborne still has not received its day one patch, which is going to bring forward the Gunlance buffs that were mentioned in the second developer diary. So what that means is that some of the numbers that you're going to be watching in terms of shelling, they're not really going to match what you can expect in the final version of the game. So basically, expect your Gunlance to do considerably more damage than what is being shown here. And also, I will not be able to show you the guard point for the Wormstake Blast loading animation because it hasn't been implemented yet, or the follow-up combos for the Wormstake Blast animation, which I did show in my Gunlance got buffed video. I will tell you how to do them, and it's not really that hard, but just know that basically what you are seeing here in terms of damage and in terms of even the animation speed of Wormstake Blast load, it's not going to be what you can expect in the final version of the game. But anyways, now that you know that stuff, let's begin. So one of the key aspects of the Gunlance is its ability to shell monsters, or basically shoot at them like this. Now, each Gunlance is going to have its own shelling type, and there's 3 different shelling types, and I feel that one of the very first choices that you're going to have to make when it comes to playing a Gunlance is deciding what playstyle you want to do. And for that, I'm going to start by showing you all of the different shelling styles and kind of like the gameplay that you should be doing with them. So the very first one is the normal playstyle, and the normal playstyle has the most advantage when you do full burst. Now, I will teach you the full burst combo, which is not super complex, should be fairly easy to do, but basically playing normal Gunlance, you're going to try to get this particular move on the monster as often as you possibly can, which is you get a slam down like this, and once you get that slam on the monster, you want to then unload all of your shells into it. Bam. And then you're going to do another attack, and then you're going to reload, slam into the monster again, shell. This is the style that you see the player that did the sub 4-minute kill do. And the reason he does that is because the Gunlance that was available in the second Iceborne beta, as well as the first Iceborne beta, was the normal shelling Gunlance. And as such, full burst is the best way to deal damage with the normal shelling Gunlance. So basically what I'm saying is like, this is what you can expect if you want to play normal shelling style. Now, when it comes to wide shelling, your playstyle is going to be very different from normal shelling. Now, whereas with normal shelling, you would be doing full burst like this, that is not something that you actually want to do with the wide shelling Gunlance, because whereas normal shelling really excels at dealing damage with full burst because of the number of shells, because of the bonuses, and just because of the playstyle itself, with wide shelling, the thing that your Gunlance is the best at is just normal shells. So basically just pressing circle. But the thing is, if you spam circle against a target, you're going to only do 2 shells, and then you're going to do your Wormstake, which is still good damage, and you do want to apply the Wormstake in between your combos and all that. But let's say if the target is down and you have some really big opening to deal as much damage as possible, the combo that you want to go for is shell, shell, poke, shell. So shell, shell, poke, shell, reload, shell, shell, poke, shell, reload, or because of the fact that you guys might have noticed that as you keep shelling, your character keeps moving back, you might want to go for poke, shell, poke, shell, poke, shell, reload, poke, shell, poke, shell, poke, shell, reload. And this is the playstyle that you can expect to be doing most of the time as a wide shelling Gunlance user. And finally, we have the long shelling playstyle, which is a little bit of a jack of all trades. So you can do full burst if you want. It's going to deal decent damage. It's not going to deal as much damage as normal shelling full burst. You can also do shell, shell, poke, shell, but to be honest, it's not really a playstyle that you're going to be doing all that much with the long Gunlance, as it is not nearly as efficient as the wide shelling playstyle. However, the Gunlance is the best at doing something different, which is charged shells. Now, I didn't show you charged shells in the previous two Gunlances because, quite simply, you really shouldn't use charged shells in anything that's not a Gunlance, at least in my opinion. But basically, charged shelling is the ability that after any attack with the Gunlance, you can just hold down circle and it is going to do a charged shell. And that is what the Gunlance excels at. Doing these charged shells, which you can just kind of like spam nonstop. And these are going to be very important when we get to Iceborne due to the buffs to Wormstake Blast. With that, yeah, guys, remember my Gunlance got buffed video? That's when I did the face. Oh, crap. What? Yeah, it was with a charged shell, and it was a charged shell on a normal Gunlance, and it did way more damage than I really expected. But basically, that's the thing about the long playstyle. Again, you can do full burst if you want to, or you can do the long shelling playstyle. Oops, I forgot to reload. Sorry about that. Or you can do the long shelling playstyle, which is kind of like this. Bang. 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 Which is pretty friggin' sweet as well. So now that you've seen the different shelling styles and the play styles that they provide you with, I feel it is important for us to review the basics of the Gunlance real fast. So when it comes to the Gunlance, just think of it like this. Your triangle button or your Y button on an Xbox controller is going to be the thing that enables you to do your melee attacks. Your circle button or the B button on an Xbox controller is going to be how you shoot your Gunlance. So whenever there's a move that involves shooting, it is going to involve using that particular button. The R2 is going to be your blocking button, and it is also used for the reload animation. So basically, in order for you to reload your Gunlance, you hold R2 and then you press the circle button, and your character will reload the Gunlance like so. And finally, the L2 button is going to unlock your Slinger, which you can now go into Slinger mode even when your weapon is unsheathed. The Slinger attack of the Gunlance is going to provide you with ammunition, which is going to be important for you to get the Wormstake Blast loaded. Now, I know that it didn't drop any ammo. That's because I've done this move a bunch of times already, and the barrels there are like saturated. They're not going to drop ammo for a while. But like before this, just know that they dropped ammo like 5 times or something like that. Since the Gunlance provides you with ammunition whenever you use its special Clutch Claw attack, you're going to need to hit a monster twice in order to weaken its body part to deal additional damage. So notice that when I hit it the second time, it is now weakened, which means that now I would deal additional damage to the head of this specific monster. Okay? So, now let's talk a little bit more about these combos. So, the Gunlance has a poking combo, which enables you to do 3 pokes if you want to. 1, 2, 3, you can combine this with a moving poke, which is called a lunging up thrust, I believe, which basically if you're moving forward, press triangle, bam, you're going to do that particular attack, and you can combo that into the triple poke. Now, think of the poke more as a tool for you to reposition yourself than necessarily something that you're going to be doing for damage. The main purpose of the poke in the Gunlance, at least from my personal experience, is to position your character in, basically position yourself to deal the really big damage. This is not your big damage attack. As you guys remember, I showed you the poke shell poke for the wide, showed you the slam burst combo, etc., etc. So how do you go into the slam burst? Well, after the lunging thrust, you want to press circle and triangle, and your character is going to do a slam down like this. Okay, so basically, watch again. Forward and triangle, triangle and circle, bam. That is the slam down, and that is like the basis for you to do your full burst for the normal shelling playstyle or the long shelling if you want to do long shelling hybrid with slam burst. In order to get to that slam from a stationary position, you want to press the circle and triangle at the same time. It is going to do a rising slash, and after the rising slash, you can follow that up with just a regular triangle press, and it will do the slam with the overhead smash. Overhead smash being probably one of the most important moves for normal shelling playstyle and even long shelling playstyle if you want to do full burst. Okay? So that's how you get to the overhead smash. Another way to get to the overhead smash is by doing a jumping attack, which we actually have this kind of like covered by the fences, but we can still do a jumping attack. So if you do a jumping attack by moving forward and triangle from a ledge, you're going to do a jumping smash, which is kind of like the same thing as an overhead smash. Or you can jump and press R2. And you will also do another jumping smash. And at any point in time after you do one of those slams, you can press circle for a full burst. That's how you get the burst fire. Now, naturally, after you do that, you're out of ammunition, so you got to reload before you can do another full burst. Otherwise, you'll do your full burst, and then you'll continue your rotation, and you're not really going to get anywhere. Now, the way to reset your rotation is going to be with a reload. So at any point in time after pretty much any attack with the Gunlance, you can do a quick reload. So for instance, if I shell, I can quick reload by pressing R2 and circle immediately or even during the attack animation. You can do this for anything. Poke, quick reload. Rising slash, quick reload. You know, pretty much any move except full burst. So if you do a full burst move, you're not going to be able to do a quick reload because that would be a little bit too powerful. Or I don't know, maybe that's not the reason, but I just know that you can't combo into a reload after a full burst, even though that is going to be a lot of people's instant reaction. They'll be like, oh yeah, dude, I just want to reload and do another full burst and another one. So you're going to need to do another melee attack after the full burst in order to get to an animation that allows you to reload. So, full burst, another melee attack. And by the way, this wide sweep right there, one of the hardest hitting, if not the hardest hitting melee attack of the Gunlance. So keep that in mind. So, slam burst, another melee attack, and now you go into the quick reload. And after you do that quick reload, if you press triangle and circle, you'll be able to go into the slam down again to do another full burst. Okay? And that's how full burst works. So, overhead smash, burst fire, another melee attack, reload, triangle, circle for overhead smash, burst fire, wide sweep, reload, overhead smash, burst fire. That's how the burst fire combo works. Okay? So keep that in mind. And I understand, some people are going to be triggered because like, oh my god, he's doing so many burst fires with a long shelling Gunlance. And it's like, yeah, it's the Gunlance that I had equipped. That's not really a big deal. Basically, you're going to be seeing more damage than that if you use a normal shelling Gunlance, but for the purpose of learning the moveset itself, it's not particularly relevant. Don't worry about it. So, anyways, that is full burst playstyle. How about doing wide shelling playstyle, which was the poke, poke, shoot, poke, poke, shoot? Well, that's basically circle, circle, triangle, circle, reload. With the quick reload. Remember, you can do quick reloads after just about anything. So, you know, just do that. So, shell, shell, poke, quick reload. I did a poke there. I completely messed it up. Poke, shell, reload. And again, using the pokes to reposition yourself from time to time because you're going to be moving away from the target as you do it. But yeah, the whole thing about the wide shelling is basically 2 circles, 1 triangle, another circle, and a quick reload. So you can see the button prompts there. I messed it up, actually. There you go. Okay? That's how it works for wide shelling. And then finally, for the charge shells, like I told you, pretty much after almost any attack, you can just hold down on circle and do a charged shell. Usually you want to do this with pokes and regular shells because like if you start messing it with the other moves, you're going to start aiming your Gunlance at interesting places. And that's another interesting thing, which is a bit of a more advanced technique. Like say for instance, a monster is flying above you. You can actually shell directly upwards because the shelling works at wherever your weapon was aiming when you shot the shell. So for instance, if I poke forwards and shoot, I'm going to shoot forwards. If I do a rising slash, which is triangle and circle, and then shoot, I'm going to shoot upwards. If I shoot in the middle of the rising slash, it's going to have a bit of an angle to it depending on how you do it. But basically, it's all about when you shoot, what angle the weapon is in. That's the angle that you're going to be shooting at. And you can do the same thing for charged shells. So imagine, for instance, I have a long gun lance. There's a Rathalos directly above me trying to fly away or something. You can pull some really cool stuff by doing this. And then holding circle. And keep holding circle. And you're going to keep firing upwards, which is pretty cool. I've brought down a couple of monsters like that, and it's a pretty cool sensation. You can do it with regular shells as well, though. So you can just like spam directly into the air. Do remember, if you press it 3 times, you're going to go into the Wormstake Cannon. And now let's talk about the Wormstake Cannon. What are the moves that are going to get you into the Wormstake Cannon? Well, like I said, there's 2 of them, which is double shell, the 3rd shell, Wormstake Cannon. Actually, I think there's like 3 of them. So if you go into the full burst combo, for instance, full burst, and you spam triangle at the end, that's another Wormstake Cannon. And finally, if you go into full burst and press circle again, instead of doing the melee like spam circle now, you're going to do a Wormstake Cannon as well. So there's a couple of moves that will take you into that Wormstake Cannon whenever you really want it, and you just like, dude, I just need a Wormstake Cannon now. Instead of trying to be fancy with it, just like spam it twice, and boom. And now you guys are like, well, but that's not the same Wormstake Cannon that we saw the other guy use. Yeah, the thing that you guys saw him use is actually the Wormstake Blast. Now, the way to load the Wormstake Blast is you go into Slinger mode, and you press triangle and circle, and your character will do this animation. Do remember, you need to have Slinger ammo equipped. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Now, if you do the Wormstake Cannon move after this, you're going to get the Wormstake Cannon applied to the monster. Right there. And at this point, you can do any type of shelling that you want. But remember, only shelling is going to trigger the Wormstake Cannon. Regular attacks are not going to do anything, but when you do shell, you see the procs. And remember, again, the damage is nerfed. You're not seeing the proper shelling damage that you can expect in the actual final game. Charged shells also work. They deal quite a bit of damage, which is pretty damn sweet. But now you guys are like, well, but that's not convenient. Having to go into this and then pressing triangle and circle, it's a bit annoying. There's a faster way to load it in the middle of an attack animation. So if you do an attack animation, after every animation, you can do the quick reload. Remember? R2 plus circle. I showed you guys this. Well, you can do the same thing for the Wormstake Blast, except instead of pressing R2, you press L2. So you do a regular attack, L2 circle, and boom, there's your Wormstake Blast. Now let's talk a little bit more about the Wormstake Blast, because unfortunately I won't be able to show you everything about it. So let me load up another one. Now, during the Wormstake Blast, your regular ammunition also gets reloaded. So it doesn't just load up a Wormstake Blast, it also reloads your whole gun lance. So if you're out of ammo, like there, you're out of ammo, no stake, no nothing if you look to the top left-hand corner. When you do the Wormstake Blast charge, you're going to load up everything. During this animation, you will have a guard point. And I know that I can't really show you that now because it's not implemented into the game, but just know that you do have a guard point. And also, after this animation, there is a number of follow-up attacks that you can do. Let me get rid of it again so that we can load it up. You always have to get rid of the Wormstake in order to load it up again. You can't just like reload it if it's already loaded into the gun lance, if that makes sense. Because you can quick reload even if your gun lance is full to cancel animations and whatnot. Like, look, the gun lance is full. I can still perform a quick reload because it's an animation canceling technique to get you into a different thing. Which, by the way, after a reload, triangle circle also gets you into the overhead smash. Yeah, I did say this was a crash course, okay? So try to keep up. After a quick reload, you can go into an overhead smash as well, which I forgot to say earlier. But anyway, due to the fact that you are not able to just load the Wormstake Blast if it's already loaded, that guard point is not intended to be used the same way that you use guard points in a Charge Blade, for instance, which is like, oh, something's coming at me, I'm going to try to get a guard point in. The guard point of the Gunlance is more to prevent monsters from interrupting you from loading the Wormstake Blast. And now, after you load the Wormstake Blast, like say for instance you're doing the attack load animation like I told you, you would do this, load it in the monster's face. You would be able to follow that up with a Wormstake, a Wormstake application on the monster. So basically doing this animation. You're able to follow it up, the Wyvern Blast pile, that's what they call it. You're able to follow that up immediately after loading the Wormstake Blast. Again, I can't show you in this version, but basically if you press triangle circle after loading it up, you will be able to stab the monsters with it. You'll also be able to do this attack, which is forward and triangle immediately after loading the Wyvern Stake Blast, and that will enable you to attack the monster. You'll also be able to shell immediately after doing the Wormstake Blast. So basically there will be a number of moves that are available to you immediately after you load the Wormstake Blast. The Wormstake Blast also loads faster once we actually received that patch that will be coming day 1. And then finally, one of the coolest moves of the Gunlance that I still haven't shown you is holding down block and pressing triangle and circle. That is going to let you do the Wyvern's Fire. The Wyvern's Fire has a cooldown, which I don't remember exactly how many seconds it's going to be, but basically depending on your artillery level, you're going to have that cooldown be a little bit reduced, and it is one of the coolest attacks of the Gunlance. It is one of those things that you kind of want to do on cooldown regardless of your shelling playstyle. Whenever you get a good opening and you're able to really land that attack, you want to land that attack. Just remember that there's a big recovery animation coming after that. So, you know, if the monster is down, you want to deal as much damage as possible and then finish with the Wyvern Stake, not Wyvern Stake, with the Wyvern's Fire attack of the Gunlance. Otherwise, if you're just trying to get the Wyvern's Fire off, just attack the monster and try to shoot him in the face with it. Now, one of the things that a lot of people don't know about Wyvern's Fire is that you can actually free aim it while it is being charged. I've had this question asked a lot of time. How the hell do you aim Wyvern's Fire, dude? I have no idea how to do that. And to be completely honest, credit goes to a German spy. He was the one who showed me this because he was playing with the Gunlance and he just started aiming the thing. And I was one of those users where I was just like going, dude, how the hell did you do that? But basically, it's super simple. If when you get the charge on the Wyvern's Fire going, if you then hold down R2 and L2, you can use the right stick to aim wherever you want. So it looks a little bit something like this. You can literally aim it upwards if you want to. You can aim it downwards. You can aim it wherever you want. So now let's talk about a couple of the aerial moves for the Gunlance. So you have a sliding attack, which is going to give you a jumping rising slash, which from that jumping rising slash, you can actually combo into anything that you want to do in the air. So you can do a jumping smash pressing R2. When that jumping smash, you can combo that into a full burst if you want to. You can also do a jumping poke by pressing triangle again while you're in the air. And there's an additional move of the Gunlance, which, to be honest, I don't see being used all that often by a lot of players, but it is a really cool move, particularly with normal shelling. With long shelling, it's not as impressive. But basically, if you press circle while you're in the air, you're going to unload all of your shells into, hopefully, a monster's face. Now, this is almost like an aerial full burst. They even call it an aerial burst. Another thing that I forgot to mention about the reloads, we talked about quick reloads and all that. If you reload after dodging, you can also do an instant reload by basically pressing circle after a dodge. And finally, you can also just jump off of cliffs, press R2 for a jumping smash, or if you jump off of a cliff and press triangle, while you're jumping off, you also get the jumping smash, and if you press it after you jump off, you get the jumping thrust. And then somewhat of a more advanced technique that you really probably only need to worry if you're a speedrunner, but the Gunlance also has some pretty good ledge game if you want to get involved in that, which is basically like if you see a ledge like this, you can jump backwards by pressing X, and then you immediately press R2, you're going to do the slapstick lance. So, bam, 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 bam. And this is a very effective way of speed running if you want to get into that kind of stuff. You can abuse ledges. Other weapons that usually do this tend to be either the greatsword, I believe, or the hammer. But there you go. You can do it with the Gunlance as well. I'm not a big fan of this, so I don't tend to use this all that often. But the option is there if you want to do it. Now, you can't really... you can full burst after this, but it's going to kind of break your combo, so you probably don't want to do that. Like, see how you kind of like slide back and it kind of screws you over, and it just slows down the animation. Like when you're doing this playstyle, this is all you want to do. It's just like bam, bam, slap, slap, slap. And finally, you have the wall attack of the Gunlance, which even though it's not particularly powerful, it will reload the entirety of your Gunlance if you're out of ammunition. So if you basically do the lunging thrust, which is super easy, it's just forward and triangle, and you run into a wall doing that, you get the special wall attack of the Gunlance, which is something like this. Reloads, bam, and does an overhead smash, and as you can imagine, as with everything that does an overhead smash, you can follow it up with a full burst. So again, this is going to be something that you will usually do if you either need them onto monster, or if you are playing normal shelling or long shelling hybrid. Now, when it comes to skills, in case you guys are wondering what kind of skills could be useful for the Gunlance, you need to realize that there's two sides to every Gunlance. You have the melee side and the shelling side, which is when you shoot, right? So the way that it works is everything that melee weapons are affected by, the melee side of the Gunlance is also affected. So weakness, exploit, maximum might, attack boost, all of those things are going to increase the amount of damage that you will deal with the melee attacks, like the overhead smash, the pokes, all of that stuff is affected by melee skills. However, when you get to the shelling side of things, you know, weakness exploit isn't really going to do anything for your shelling. Attack boost isn't going to do anything for your shelling, because shelling is true damage. It is, for all intents and purposes, a fixed number, and even though it varies slightly from monster to monster because a small percentage of shelling attacks do include fire damage, so, you know, fire monsters, you might do like 1 or 2 less points of damage. But ultimately, you should be seeing around the same values for most monsters, regardless of where you hit them, because it is true damage. So in order for you to actually increase the damage of shelling, the skill that you're going to need is artillery, which not only increases the damage of your shelling, it also reduces the cooldown of Wyvern's fire that we talked about when I was talking about the Gunlance moves. Now, on top of that, there's also another very important skill, which is capacity boost. Capacity boost increases the number of shells that you have on your Gunlance. So therefore, if you're running normal shelling Gunlance, you're going to get 6 shells. If you're running long shelling Gunlance, you're going to have 4 shells. So capacity boost becomes pretty important, so that you have to reload less often and deal more damage with slam burst and stuff like that, because you have additional shells that are being unloaded every time. On top of that, if you want to do charged shells, which was one of the attacks that I showed you throughout this video, you'll want to have level 3 focus, because it increases the speed at which you charge those charged shells. Otherwise, it's going to be slower, it's not going to be as efficient, but focus is only important for charged shells and nothing else when it comes to Gunlance. So if you are running normal shelling playstyle or wide shelling playstyle, you don't need focus. You only need focus for long shelling, so that you can do the long shelling moves. Other useful skills for the Gunlance could be something like guard, so that you don't get knocked back as often. Another very useful skill to have on the Gunlance that not everybody is going to be able to get, particularly once we start with Iceborne, because we're going to be starting to do different mixed sets with the different monsters that show up, is Razor Sharp Spare Shot. This is the Xeno'jiiva set bonus, and the reason why it's so important is because shelling consumes a lot of your sharpness, and this effectively diminishes the rate at which that sharpness gets consumed. So Razor Sharp Spare Shot, very important. You can also use Protective Polish and Speed Sharpening if that is something that you want to get, but personally I prefer Razor Sharp Spare Shot for my own usage. But you know, it's basically anything that you can get that slows down the rate at which you lose sharpness is going to be good. However, Master's Touch is not going to help you all that much, because shelling does not crit, and therefore, you're not going to get the benefit of Master's Touch whenever you shell, so that's not super useful for Gunlance, in case you guys are wondering. Another skill that I personally really like is Evade Extender. It basically helps you move a little bit faster throughout the battlefield because the Gunlance is a weapon that doesn't have a lot of mobility, so Evade Extender does help out quite a bit in that regard. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm sorry that this video is a little bit all over the place, but like I said, it is kind of like a crash course at this point. I'm just super excited about Iceborne. I just can't wait to get started tomorrow. There should probably be an event popping up in the channel soon. Bookmark that shit, be there, so that we can all experience the beginning of Iceborne together. Thank you all very much for watching. If this was helpful for you in any way, shape, or form, make sure to hit that like button because it does help me out a lot. If you didn't like it though, or if you were a little bit upset over the fact that this video is a little bit all over the place, hit the dislike button because feedback is extremely important. Comments and feedback in the comment section down below. If you enjoy my content, subscribe, maybe hit the bell notification icon so that YouTube notifies you of my videos every once in a full moon or something of that nature. Appreciate you all being here. Hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow. Stay strong, and may your shields never break. Good luck, sucks.